views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, good evening. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and editors and filmmakers and photographers, anybody who puts stuff out in the Bronx, so you can get an idea what you're seeing, what you're reading, what you're hearing about. And this evening we are going to talk about a thorny issue, especially in the East Bronx, and that is the whole notion of the e-scooters that seem to be everywhere. And also in the second part of our show, we have a wonderful Bronx artist. As you may know, I've been around for a long time. I had never seen this artist's work, and it's extraordinary, and you're going to love it. So we'll do that in our second segment. Our first segment, though, is with an old friend. He's not that old. It's Griffin Kelly, who had been an intern at City Limits. The internship just ended. He's a student at the CUNY Craig Newmark School of Journalism, and he's still writing. He will not stop, I'm sure, and that's what he does. Nice to have you with us again, Griffin.
Oh, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
So you wrote this article about the e-scooters, and you and I did have some interaction about what really the attitude of people is toward it, how useful it is. I'll just give a little background. Everybody in the city of New York, and in particular in the borough of the Bronx, is looking for alternative ways to expand our transportation opportunities. One of the big issues in parts of the Bronx, including the East Bronx, are transportation deserts, where access to various forms of public transit not quite available. And so e-scooters have been proposed. In fact, I've already started in the middle of August. The DOT launched the first phase of its long-awaited e-scooter pilot program in the East Bronx. So they're let's see, where are they? Eastchester, Cobb City, and Morris Park. There's you can see the map on the northern part of the East Bronx. Phase 2 should start sometime this fall or early 2022 in the southern part of the East Bronx. Maybe I'll just ask in general, what were the issues, and then we'll lay out how it's going.
Well, I think some of the main concerns, I guess the naysayers would have is that people were unsure about how they're kind of going to be regulated. Like, where do you leave them? You're supposed to leave them in these designated areas, but those might fill up, and then people just start leaving them anywhere because they eventually get collected by the companies, who provide them.
Here's proof. These are photos that our producer Rebecca Hemick took of her own neighborhood, of these scooters being left just everywhere. It's like,
Mhm.
hello, here they are.
And it might not be the worst thing in certain places, but you don't want these scooters blocking, crosswalks, roadways, or maybe ramps that are very necessary for people with physical disabilities.
Entranceways to stores,
Yeah.
commerce. You certainly don't want to interrupt that. So that's a negative. Let's go back to the positive. People who are interested in bike riding and other alternative forms of transportation are going to say, well, wait a minute, we've got to do something. These are convenient. Just about everybody can use one. It's even more simple, I think, than riding a bicycle. So there's that side of it.
hmm Yeah, I mean, some people, like you even said before, some people tend to refer to this area as a transportation desert, which it definitely can be, or it's just very complicated. Like you might need to walk a few blocks, take a bus, walk another few blocks to get to your train station or your subway stop. Whereas with this, you hop on your scooter, you go right to the subway stop, and there you go, you're good.
This opens up, or has the whole notion of it, the access to mopeds, the bicycles with little motors on them.
hmm
And the pandemic, I think, helped to bring it on because people were looking for alternatives to using mass transit. They said, well, I got to get somewhere. I'm not riding the trains or the buses. It doesn't feel secure to me. So I'm going to get some other form. The problem, which I can see, and I've seen everywhere, is they're all over the place. They don't seem to be regulated. You see people riding electric vehicles on the sidewalks. Uh, they zip around. I'm a bicycle rider, so I know
Hmm.
what it's like to be on an alternative vehicle in the street. And you're doing your best to follow traffic patterns and regulations. The folks riding these things don't. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, I think the issue, sometimes comes from that. Let's say there's a problem going on in a community, something illegal might be happening. You know who to call. You call 911 or the cops or somebody like that. When you have an issue with these scooters, you can call the companies that are providing them, but it's like now I need to look up this new phone number and learn how to navigate this process of complaining about where are these scooters being parked and things like that,
And
or
and
how
and by
riders
the
are.
way if somebody goes zipping by on the street, on the sidewalk with, a moped or something, uh, you he's gone, he or she, of course,
Hmm.
is gone, and what are you gonna do? "Oh, I just saw one?" I mean,
Hmm. I mean, it. I feel like I was getting so many people from both sides of the aisle of like you say, there are people who are just like they're reckless riders, they park them everywhere. We don't know how to control this, but then there are other people who are really for it, saying like this is going to help everybody get around. It's going to be fun. It's going to make people want to come to the community so they could ride these scooters around because this is the only place in the city right now that has these services.
yes, that is true that, the East Bronx was selected, for better or for worse, to be first, and, as I mentioned, but let's be clear, phase 2
Hmm.
is, Throgs Neck, Soundview, and Castle Hill. I could see, just for example, they put the ferry at Ferry Point Park, and there isn't really a lot of mass transit to get there.
Hmm.
It becomes much more useful. Somebody will just, if they don't live too far, they can get on a scooter, they can get to the ferry. That's a good thing. To me, and I will make a semi-political statement. Mayor De Blasio has, gotten a lot of criticism over the years of not being very detailed, of having good plans or interesting plans, but not being able to put them out with regulation. Seems to me, before this was laid out, this should all have been thought of, discussed with community boards and laid it all out.
Yeah, I think
Your
this.
thoughts about that? You don't have
I
to be political, but just
Yeah.
that maybe we need more regulation.
I mean, the one thing that I was thinking about that, this really highlights is that now the city is working with these private companies to help alleviate their transportation problems. And I think it, maybe sheds a light on how the city's transportation itself may not be the best, which, of course, people always have complaints about the buses and the subways and things like that. That now we kind of almost need to depend on these private companies to help us pick up the slack in some areas.
Yes, I'm always interested in levels of government that have input or control. This to me is where a borough president's office could come in. But we're going to have a new borough president beginning January 1st. But it seems to me, before you come in my borough, we like the idea of these things, but how are we going to format it so that our communities accept it and like it, and it's productive? I don't want to reveal a name because it's not my business to do, but I know that someone who won one of the primaries for city council was hit by a moped on Jerome Avenue, and it has been laid up and was injured. I made the comment that, well, now you have a clue as to some of the problems with alternative forms of education, of transportation.
Hmm.
I also want to mention, in your article, they talked about new protected bike lanes for White Plains Road and Bronxdale Avenue, and shared bike lanes along East 233rd and East Chester Road. As I said, I'm a bike rider. There's no consistency to these plans. And worst of all, there are many communities that really don't want them.
Hmm.
And I'm just not sure how to resolve that, because bicycle riders want them. If we're going to create bigger forms of transportation, or expanded forms, we're going to need them. On the other hand, if communities don't want them, it's a problem.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it brings up this bigger issue. Sometimes DOT likes to set up all these ideas for new bike lanes coming in, and it's a matter of time. Sometimes it takes them a really long time to put these bike lanes in, or even get anywhere near putting them in. Um, and then it could also be speaking to a point of, is there some gentrification going on with these new bike lanes coming? Is there going to be more market rate housing coming in? Are there going to be more expensive businesses and restaurants and things like that? So they're, not always a telltale sign, but people get a little worried about them.
Yeah, that they lead to something else, and
Hmm.
again, that is a visionary question to me. That somebody's got to say, this is how we're going to develop our communities, and each community board. I mean, as you might imagine, I'm familiar with many of them in the Bronx. Each one of them has their own point of view. Some are really in favor of these things and think we really need it. Some oppose the plans. I mean, we're talking about the East Bronx, the bike lanes on Morris Park were vehemently opposed by the community. The one on Broadway in the West Bronx, in the Northwest Bronx, was partially objected to. I'm there often, as a matter of fact. I don't know that it was implemented real smartly in certain areas. But
Hmm.
anyway, so Griffin, what's next for you? Now you will be writing more for City Limits. If you're asking me, they should let you write a lot for them, but that's not.
I
So
mean, that's the
where
plan
are
right
you at
now.
now? You started school again. CUNY just started, right?
I did, yes. We actually just started our semester. I'm going to be there in a couple hours. We're doing in-person classes, which is a new thing for me. I came in, this semester that
Oh, during
was,
the pandemic. Wow.
yeah, everybody just has only had online classes.
Wow.
Um, so
And
I'm
now
taking a few things.
not to change
Yep.
subjects, but are all your classes online? Are
No,
you
no, they're
sending all
actually
your
in person
classes
now.
in person?
They're in person now.
Wow.
Yeah,
All right.
it's
Well,
pretty cool.
presumably you'll stay safe. I guess it's a little easier for colleges because the students are not as young as in grade schools, where the risk for virus is much stronger.
Yeah, and
Um,
this is a
and,
very
and
particular school with a small student body, like 80 students in my class.
Right, right, right. All right. Griffin Kelly, former intern with City Limits. We hope to see your byline even more in City Limits and anywhere, because you're a very good writer. You're very thoughtful, and we always love having you on the Bronx Buzz. We assume you'll come back at some point.
Yes, sir. Whenever you want me, I'll be here.
Great. Okay. Griffin Kelly, what a pleasure to have him. Take a short break. When we come back, you are going to enjoy this artist.